So it's good. So we do want to celebrate today what we're doing. If you could advance that for me. Thank you. So who's ever advancing for me? One more for me. Thank you. This is our month for Samaritan Bethany. And if you would like to go help move our residents from their rooms down to their worship services, they have 2 services, one at 9 and one at 10. And we invite you to just show up over there at Samaritan Bethany. They'll tell you what to do and how to make that happen. It's a great ministry and outreach, so we invite you to do that all throughout the month of January. We also want to let you know that today our youth have started selling their subs. Do you guys want to say anything about that?
Look at the colors. They're Green Bay Packers.
Whatever. Go away. Peter, tell us about the sub sale.
To fund our upcoming youth trip, you can order Super Bowl subs. Pre-order in the main entrance. Pickup is February 4th between services or after second service. $5 per sub. Vegetarian subs are available. That's it.
Okay, good job. So go buy your subs out there. Yeah, absolutely. Go buy your subs for Super Bowl Sunday. We know the Vikings are going to be in the Super Bowl, right? There you go. Okay, so by the way, Pastor Beth is gone today. She and Sam and Tyla are they're roughing it this week. They're out in L.A. So yeah, I know. You got to feel bad for them. We also want to let you know about our small group connect groups are starting this coming week. One of those groups is this health and wellness group that we wanted to get started because after the new year, that's what everybody wants to do. So we're going to invite you, if you just want to come and learn more about fitness and nutrition. They're going to have monthly educational sessions, and then there's personal workout type things if you want to do. It's a video workout, and then some personal training if you want to do that as well. All sorts of cool stuff. Come and join us if you want more information on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. And Stacy and Sherry will guide you on the way. So come and join us for that for sure. We also let you know about the family movie night coming up. If you'd like to come and join us, not only for kids, for adults as well. We just need to know if you're coming. The Batman Lego movie is an awesome movie. Come and see it and be a kid yourself. So we want you to do that. Also, next Sunday, just so you know, it's one service at 9 o'clock. We're going back to our normal schedule because of the annual meeting. We got so many cool things that are going to be happening throughout this coming year. It was just going to take too much time to try to condense it down into a 45-minute window. So we wanted to do one worship service, bring everybody together at 9 o'clock. Our annual meeting will be at 10 o'clock. And then following that will be, if you could advance that for me one time, Steve, you'll see all that. And then after that will be a soup, chili, cornbread cook-off. Lori, you want to tell us about that?
Okay, so as Paul said, many of you are familiar with, we typically have a chili cook-off. This year we've expanded it to soup and bread. Paul is insistent he's still doing chili because he wants to win.
I'm going to win.
Okay. He always says that, doesn't he? He
says
says that every year. So,
Jorge, you cannot
this is my
enter.
plea to all of you. If you have a favorite soup recipe, chili recipe, please, share it with us. I'm going to do my crowd-pleasing chicken wild rice something or another. But it's not going to be, it's crowd-pleasing, but not this big of crowd, okay? So need some people to sign up. If you can go online and do so, or just see me at the welcome desk. I see Jorge in the crowd. No pressure.
He can't enter the soup.
Yeah, it's just one crock pot of soup, and if you sign up, we'll get you an email out of kind of the particulars. So hope you can join me with that. The other thing, I think, connect groups. Beth has been talking, we have all been talking about connect groups. Last week, a lot of you had an opportunity to sign up for our connect groups. We've had over 100 people sign up, get connected at Peace Church. For those of you who aren't sure what that initiative is, it's our opportunity. Paul talked about a health group. Well, that's just, some people want to get healthy. Me, I'd rather eat. So if you want to eat with people, meet new people, let's say you are a runner. Let's say you like going to the movies. It's the opportunity to do some of the things you like to do out in the real world with new people, friends from church, get to know people. So it's a connection outside of a church Bible study or a church work day like yesterday. So we had a lot of people connect yesterday, and just wanted to do a big shout out of thanks to everyone who was able to come, share their time and their talents, getting this place spiffed up. It was a great day.
Great. Thank you, Lori, for your leadership with that, too. You'll notice that the pews have all been cleaned, the Murphy soap down, the windows are clean. The whole building actually got a major makeover, so we're so thankful for everybody who participated with that. Also, if you've taken down all your Christmas paraphernalia and you have some lights that weren't working, we do have a bin out here that you could put those into. We'd rather recycle those than just put them into landfill where they're just going to stay there forever. So if you have old lights that you'd like to just give to us, we'll put them into our box and then have those properly recycled along the way. We also want to let you know just a few other items. This is MLK weekend. We wanted to be mindful of that and all those activities. Please participate and have a big voice. We need that in our world now more than ever, so please stand up and let's speak loudly about how we're called to love one another. I do want to share a couple of other items with you as far as our prayer concerns. Fred Traxel was in and out of the hospital this week. He's doing better and at home recovering. We also had Dolores Kelsch, who went in the hospital, and she's back home now. She's doing better. And Emma Jean Beloy, we found out this morning, is in Madonna Tower, so prayers for Emma Jean as well. Yep. Other items we need to do? I do want to lift up just one other item. This has been Law Enforcement Week, and we do want to support our police officers. We have several in church, one up here. And so, Garrett, can you just stand a second? Are there other officers that I don't think anybody else is here today, but thank you, Garrett, for your service. You may have seen, you're a TV star, man. So autographs afterwards. So they did a big expose about this on KAL, and Garrett was featured in that. We're just so thankful for your service, and thank you for taking care of us so well. Other items. We come together this day to thank God for what God is calling us to do and to be as people of God. So let's just begin with the word of prayer and ask God to direct our time with one another. God, as we celebrate your presence, as we come into this new year, new day, new way, we know that you are all around us. Help us to find ways of being your church and finding ways to be at peace in this time. We pray that you will guide us, and not only us here in these walls, but in our community, our country, our leaders, and all the world around, that we might have one voice that celebrates your gift given to us so long ago. Help us rejoice and give thanks as we celebrate being one with another in the prayer which Jesus first taught. Our Creator.
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever.
If you're able, I invite you to please rise as we come together, because we rise together with one voice to break down the walls and let God's love be our guide.
Break down the walls, let love prevail. Pour out your truth, teach us your ways, O God. Teach us your ways.
Volunteer you now. Let us rise,
let us rise, make us one. We rise, let us love, like you love, let us rise. Every tongue, every tribe, every heart unified, let us rise. Oh, let us rise.
make us one. We cry, let us love like you love. Let us rise. Every tongue, every tribe, every heart unified. Let us rise. Oh,
Let us rise.
let us rise.
Come together on this day knowing that God's presence needs to be felt more than ever. So let's come to worship because God makes each one of us to worship in a very special way.
You and I were made to worship. You and I were called to love. You and I are forgiven and free. When you and I embrace surrender, when you and I choose to believe, you and I will see what we were meant to be. Before the day, before the light, before the world revolved around the sun, God on high stepped down into time and wrote the story of God's love for everyone. God has filled our hearts with wonder, so that we always remember. You and I were made to worship. You and I are called to love. You and I are forgiven and free. When you and I embrace surrender, when you and I choose to believe, you and I will see what we were meant to be. All we are is all we have, is all a gift from God that we receive. Brought to life, open up our eyes to see the majesty and glory that God brings. God has filled our hearts with wonder, so that we always remember. You and I were made to worship. You and I are called to love. You and I are forgiven and free. When you and I embrace surrender, when you and I choose to believe, you and I will see that we were meant to be. And even the rocks cry out, and even the heavens shout at the sound of God's holy name. And the holy voice will go, let every knee bow down, and is worthy of all our praise. You and I were made to worship. You and I are called to love. You and I are forgiven and free. When you and I embrace surrender, when you and I choose to believe, you and I will see. You and I were made to worship. You and I are called to love. You and I are forgiven and free. When you and I embrace surrender, when you and I choose to believe, you and I will see what we were meant to be. We were meant to be.
We invite you, if you're able to go, pass God's peace and love to one another and share that good news. You're welcome to move out of the pews to celebrate this day. Kids, come forward. So you're welcome to greet one another, share God's peace and love. Let the kids come forward as we celebrate on this day.
Peace, love, joy.
Peace, love, joy.
I'd like to have our children come forward for a few moments as well. So kids, come up. The rest are welcome to be seated. So kids, come up and join us if you would, please. Thanks.
Come on up. Come on, Isaiah. Come on. You don't want to hang out with me? Oh, he wants Beth. Well, I can't be Beth today, sorry. I got the same color hair, but that's about it. Welcome, everybody. Well, as Paul mentioned, Beth and Sam and Tyler are down in California enjoying their winter there for a little bit, but they'll be back. So today we're going to do a little talking. How many of you have been called? How many of you have heard your name being called? How have you been called? What are the reasons people call out your name? To get you stuff. What else?
For you.
Huh? To get your attention? To be annoying? Sometimes that does work. How about you, Vivian? When have you been called? At school? Have you ever been in your room and your mom or dad holler, "It's time for supper"?
I don't like it when my teacher calls my name during math
You don't? What does that mean?
because I usually don't have an answer.
Oh, when you get called at school, you don't like the teacher calling you because you usually don't have the answer. That sometimes happens. How about if you've done something you weren't supposed to do? Have you ever been called by your formal name? Yes. Whenever I hear Deborah Faye, I know that something is bad has happened, and I really screwed up. Well, today... Did you hear that? What did they say?
Pastor Paul said A.
You said A? Well, today we're going to be hearing about some Bible stories, and one is about a little boy named Samuel who was... Did you guys say that? Did you call my name?
No.
Did any of you call my name? Okay.
Paul did.
You think it's Paul?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to watch Paul's lips as we're doing this, okay? So anyway, there's a couple of Bible verses.
That's him.
Well, there's the Bible verses are about a couple of people. One is Samuel, who was sleeping, and he kept hearing his name while he was sleeping, and so he'd get up, and he'd run to his friend and say, "You called me, what do you need?" And I'm like, "I didn't call you, go back to bed." And he,
Stop saying that.
okay, who's saying my name?
Pastor Paul.
Is it somebody out there? Is somebody out there saying my name? Well, there are some other people from the Bible that have been talking, that have been getting called by God or by the Lord. And we also want to remember Martin Luther King, who was also called. And a lot of times their names got called when they least expected it.
Debbie.
Okay, let's go figure out who's saying my name. Come on, let's go figure out who's saying my name. Come on, let's go up here. Okay, is anybody up here saying my name?
Debbie.
He has it on. He has it on.
Are you saying my name?
I'm not. Watch.
Then you're
Debbie. Deborah.
Okay, all right, let's go figure out. Okay, let's go over here. Come on. Come on, let's go over here and see who's calling my name. Come on.
Daddy.
Who over here? I think I know that name. Is anybody else over here calling my name? I just heard David call my name, but is anybody else calling my name? Okay, let's go back up here and see what's everybody over here. Come on.
Debbie.
Okay, where is that coming from? Let's go over here. Come on, let's see if we can find anybody else calling my name. Is anybody over here calling my name? Anybody else
Debbie.
here? Okay, where is that coming from? Come on. Somebody's saying my name. We got to figure out who this is. We have to hear it closely.
Debbie.
Where do you think it's coming from? No. Poor Pastor Paul. He gets blamed for everything, doesn't he? Because he does say my name a lot.
Deborah Faye.
Thanks a lot. See.
Debbie, we need some help.
It's Jeff. He's calling my name. Jeff needs some help. We need to get these offering plates back up on the altar. Can I get some help carrying these up for me, please? Each person take one. There's one. Zora's going to take one. That's okay. We can. Yep. We trust Zora. She won't take anything out. Careful. Okay, let's take these back up here now to the sanctuary. Let's put them back up on the altar. We're going to be really nice with this. We can each carry one side of it, okay, because we're going to be very helpful. So let's bring them all up here to the altar. Come on. Well, that happens sometimes. That's what the problem of being the oldest. We always got to let other people do things. I know, because I'm the oldest too. Come on. Let's get them all up here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Are these gold? They're kind of gold plated. They're really pretty, aren't they? Okay, so let's come up here, let's gather around, and let's do our prayer, okay? So I'm really glad. Can you come over here? You want to come over and share with us? No? You want to be by yourself? Okay. So I'm really glad that everybody heard that call, but we also know that we can be helpful, just like Samuel was and Martin Luther King. So if we can all grab somebody's hand, we're going to do a prayer. Everybody grab somebody's hand. I don't have cooties, okay? Ready? So repeat after me. I better not. No. Loving God, thank you for all the work you do in the world. Teach us to hear your call and to work every day to be your hands and feet in the world. Amen. Thanks for your help today.
And all the people said, Debbie.
Debbie!
We do give thanks this day for.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we can walk it out and move mountains. We can walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. When the silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains. Take it to its feet and move mountains. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope, and for that we have each other, and for that we have each other. And we will rise, and we'll rise. Oh, like the day I'll rise up. In spite of the ache, I will rise 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up, rise like the days. We'll rise up, in spite of the ache. We'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you.
Woo! Whew, man. Yeah, I set up these worship services, and I don't know why I ever try to preach after these things, but man, oh man. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What a gift that is, and how blessed we are to rise up together, my friends, and to celebrate that spirit. Thank you for that so much. Well, I just need to share, I had another sermon kind of planned for today, and then the week got a hold of us. And so I've really been just trying to put this all together. I began thinking about how we can really come together as people of God and people of this nation and find ways of overcoming differences and finding ways to really be bound together instead of finding ways of being separated from one another, for us to rise up together as people. So I began thinking about that. I recall this when I was on sabbatical this past summer. I encountered at one of the churches that we visited, one of my old mentors and friends. He's now in his early 80s. And he preached this magnificent sermon. And I usually, when I go visit other churches, I'm pretty critical of the other pastors because, of course, they're not as good as me, But in this case, I'm just kidding about that, by the way. I love going to hear other people preach. But I don't often take notes of other people's sermons. But when my friend Don Gall was preaching this magnificent message, I kept trying to jot down notes to his sermon. And for some reason, usually in my house, if something sets up on the dresser for more than a month, it's gone. It just magically disappears from Adele, And so for some reason, this got stuck away somewhere. So it's been about almost 6 months old. And I unpacked this the other day, and I found this message. And it really, when I thought about those notes, I thought about that sermon and how it all came together and how kind of God moment time that those notes came to me. I began thinking about where we are because it speaks to us where we are. And so I took some liberties with these notes. I'm going to preach my sermon about this, but I think it really speaks for us very clearly today. So I changed text. I was going to preach on 1 Samuel about being called when he was a boy. You all know that story. God yelled at him 3 times. He kept ignoring God, but finally God got a hold like God always does. But I thought about that. It says great message for us. It's a feel-good sermon. We go home and say, yep, we're all called by God, and we'll go on our way. But I really thought about our message for today that we need to, I think, really be engaged with. And our text for this morning comes from Psalm 137. I changed on that. If you have your Bibles, or if you want to follow along, you can. But Psalm 137 reflects a time in the history of the Israelites after their country was invaded and it was occupied by the Babylonian army. You've heard about the Babylonians. They weren't very good people. Now, their holy city of Jerusalem had been reduced to smoldering ruins, and with it the temple wherein their God, Yahweh, was believed to dwell. Everything was destroyed. And in the end, the people themselves were driven into exile. They were cast out, if you will. Then, far from home and living in a foreign land, their captors taunted them, saying, "Sing us one of your songs of Zion." They're being taunted by that phrase. Go ahead and sing. Look how miserable your life is. Go ahead and sing. But instead of singing, the people sat in silence, in sullen silence by the rivers of Babylon, more inclined to weep than to sing. So the psalmist in 137 describes the scene this way. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, and there we wept when we remembered Zion. On the willows there we hung up our harps, for there our captors asked us for songs, and our tormentors asked for mirth, saying, "Sing us one of those songs of Zion." How could we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand wither, let my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not remember you, if I do not set Jerusalem above my highest joy. Now, to describe the conditions under which the Israelites found themselves as dark and troublesome would be the understatement. Given their circumstances, it would take a lot for the impenetrable light to be blown into a flame again. And so understandably, they chose silence and sadness and weeping as preferable to singing and rejoicing. You've been there before, right? Where life is so hard, so struggling that you just have to sit back in silence. But that is hardly surprising, given the fact that numerous others throughout history have chosen silence over speaking. Remaining silent rather than risking upsets the status quo, or imperiling opportunity, or alienating even friends or family. How many of you have alienated friends or family on Facebook by what you've said? And who among us sitting here today, this morning, does not occasionally long for a little bit of just peace and a little bit of quiet, even under the far less harsh and demanding circumstances? Now, I was thinking about that. I thought about the writer from Ecclesiastes. There's a season for everything, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. That's why we often observe a moment of silence at our services before our prayers on Sunday morning, so that we can sit quietly in the presence of God and to listen for what God has to say every once in a while. Now, one of my members told me that she once confessed to me that she used that quiet time on Sunday morning not to reflect, but to mentally prepare her weekly grocery list. And I was tempted to ask if that translated into a divinely inspired meal or not, but I chose to be quiet for a change. But then I thought, too, about this world of the chaos we live in. There's a TV commercial that we often see on TV that goes something like this, about the chaos of life.
There's nothing more important to me than my vacation. So when I need to book a hotel room, I want someone that makes it easy to find what I want.
Hello.
Booking.com gets it. They offer free cancellation in case I decide to go from kid-friendly to kid-free.
Now I can start relaxing even before the vacation begins.
Your vacation is very important. That's why Booking.com makes finding the right hotel for the right price easy. Visit Booking.com now to find out why we're Booking.yeah.
Now, those of us who are teachers or married to teachers, we know that you often feel like that, but often you have better control of your classroom, right, Sarah? Yes, indeed. And we know that. But I thought about that. Is that not how life gets a little bit chaotic for us and a little bit out of hand? And sometimes we just want to get away. Clearly, she was in and needed some very needed quiet time. Not everyone, thank goodness, is desperate as that young teacher, but the commercial makes its very clear point. We all need occasional periods of silence in our life. Most of us are able to strike some kind of a healthy balance between being fully engaged to the point of exhaustion and being so withdrawn as to become utterly isolated. In other words, we don't need to run ourselves into the ground to be meaningfully engaged with life. And we also don't need to join a monastic order in order to find some peace and quiet in our life. We can responsibly do both. Now, the key word here is responsibly. To be responsible, one must be able to respond in a way that is answerable and accountable. It's different than reacting, which is like throwing a ball up against the wall and having it bounce back to you in reverse motion, leaving everything else unchanged. But responding, on the other hand, takes into account both the cause and effect and seeks to be guided by a sense of what is right and what is wrong, of what is just and what is unjust, and in seeking a resolution to a situation. So we may shut the noise out of the world temporarily somehow, but we must never become deaf and indifferent to the cries of others who are suffering in need for our help. For if we do, then our silence may become the undoing of that which is good and that which is moral, that which is just and honorable. Neglect and silence may have some very serious consequences for us. Now, in Leviticus chapter 5, another book in the Old Testament, we find one of the sacred laws of Judaism, which says that whenever we are faced with a public obligation to testify as a witness to something we have seen or we have heard, and do not declare what we know, we commit a wrong and must bear the responsibility. Now, did you hear that? We have an obligation to testify as a witness to something we have seen and heard, and do not declare what we know. We commit a wrong and must bear the responsibility. It's the kind of testimony the intelligence committees of Congress are seeking to extract from people they are questioning at the various hearings. Unfortunately, little in the way of factual testimony seems to be forthcoming from many people these days, despite having sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help them God. It's the kind of moral fortitude and accountability that the leaders of our country are called to exhibit, to name a wrong, to name an injustice, but their cowardly silence is deafening. It's also the kind of a solemn charge given to each of us in our role as Jesus' witness for truth and justice in a world beset with social injustice and economic inequality and racial and cultural disparaging and religious perversity. Remaining silent under such conditions renders us complicit. And sometimes remaining silent in the face of wrong can be offensive as committing the wrong itself. Sometimes us saying nothing is worse than what was being said. The Reverend William Barber II, who is said to be the presumed successor to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., says the current economic and political situation in America is, I quote, "When we see signs of rising fascism, we know that we cannot be silent. This is not a right versus left movement. This is about the moral center. This is about our humanity." So while silence can be golden under certain circumstances, it can also be a cop-out and a retreat from our moral responsibility. Reverend Dr. Luther King himself once said that, "In the end, it is not the words of our enemies that hurt us the most. It is the silence of our friends." That also may be when the sound of silence becomes the sin of silence. In Rolf Hutch's book, The Deputy, it was written about 1963. The central question raises how Pope Pius XII, Christ's deputy on earth, could have failed to speak out against the mass murder of 6 million Jewish people during World War II, and by his silence failed to give voice to Christianity's most fundamental principles. Critics of the book maintain that it was a caustic indictment of Pius XII, and it was therefore anti-Catholic. But whether true or false, the book was much more than that, for it touched the raw nerve of Christian conscience in a way that scores of other books and plays on the same subject failed to do. The anguished cry of, "Am I my brother or sister's keeper?" infuses the deputy with a moral passion that cannot fail to stir the thoughtful reader or theater goer. It is one man's judgment on the leader of several 100 million Roman Catholics in the world, a man whose power Hitler feared and respected more than any other person on earth, but who refused to speak out about the butchery of his fellow human beings, the Jewish people, for fear of endangering his potential role as the mediator between Hitler and the Allies at the end of the war. It's about him, not about the other people. But the deputy was not only in judgment on the sin of silence in World War II. It's equally poignant in this application at our present time and in our circumstance. You see, it's a judgment on any society that would rather step over bodies of homeless people consigned to its streets than address the underlying causes of homelessness itself. It's a judgment on the mass and disproportionate incarceration of people of color in America's prisons today and the continued use of capital punishment as a means to execute them. It's a judgment on the ransom arrest and deportation of even law-abiding immigrants, of our dreamers, even those in our community here who fear day after day about being taken away by ICE, tearing apart families with dependent children and separating them by thousands of miles. It's a judgment on a Congress more intent with reducing taxes for the rich and the wealthy and our big corporations than on providing the needed health insurance for our poor and for our elderly. It's a judgment. It's a judgment, friends, on any executive order to ban desperate refugees because of their religious affiliation or country of origin and the inability of their own war-ravaged nations to properly vet them to our satisfaction. It's a judgment. It's a judgment on the continued pollution of our air and water and the overheating of our planet for the sake of corporate gains for an industry that's based on fossil fuels. It's a judgment. And today there are hundreds of millions of people in America all around the world whose tongues are stuck on the roof of their mouths as they sit quietly by, watch it all happen as they sit by the rivers of Babylon and say nothing. Nothing. But are taking to the streets. They're taking to the streets to protest and practices deemed injurious to the health and well-being of humanity. From high school to college-age students, to mothers and fathers taking off time from work, to those raging grannies like my mother-in-law in their 70s and 80s and even the 90s, all hitting the pavement, carrying signs to protest and advocate for injustices on this earth. Do I get an amen there somehow? See, that sound of silence is being drowned out, I believe, by the roar of determined voices that will not take no for an answer and who are prepared to press for needed reforms and programs that address people's deepest needs. I'm not talking about partisan politics here. I'm talking about people and the politics of God, about justice, about what's right, about feeding the hungry and housing those who have no place to go. That's a God thing. It has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. It's a God thing. You see, people have to be aroused. People on the move will not be silenced, nor will they tolerate the sin of silence in our day and time. This collection of you concerned voices now includes the ultra-conservative Southern Baptist Convention. You never thought I would preach about them in this service, did you? Those ultra-conservative Southern Baptist Convention, which just this past summer, they adopted a resolution decrying every form of racism, including alt-right white supremacy, as antithetical to the gospel of Jesus Christ. The resolution received a standing ovation. You got to go watch that video. It is amazing watching all these ultra-conservative Baptists. When they make this resolution come to life, they erupt. They've been waiting for this. And we may wonder why it took so long for a national church body, which includes millions upon millions of Christians, to finally get around to denouncing racism and affirming the brother and sisterhood of all of God's people. But hey, we can't knock them. We ought to rejoice and commend them for their bold and positive step forward into the 21st century. It's good to have brothers and sisters with us, is it not? Now, many of you in this congregation have also been standing up and speaking out and taking action against racism on behalf of justice and equality for a better life for all the people of the world, no matter what country they are from. You have educated yourselves about some of the things that can and must be done. And you have committed yourselves to action on behalf of other people. You are people who have heard and taken seriously the charge of Leviticus that says we are to give testimony to what we have seen and what we have heard. And among other things, you have seen and heard the good news of God's love for the least of these, our sisters and brothers. And we know that we are called to bear witness to that love through the words and through our deeds. So says an ancient law of Israel, and so says the one whom we follow and we proclaim to be the way, the truth, and the life. You see, Jesus not only instructed his followers and us to proclaim the good news of God's love for all, but said we are also to love our neighbors as ourselves. Then he showed us how to witness to that love by treating every person, with love and respect, and by giving voice to the voiceless and power to the powerless. He showed us, and still shows us today, how to rise up. He taught us and showed us how to break the chains of injustice and of hate. And it's not easy to sing the songs of Zion when your heart is burdened with the sins of the world. It's not easy to answer your call and stand up and proclaim that message when you know that there's going to be other people out there not liking what you're saying very much. And God knows there's much to grieve about today. But when people band together and join their voices as one, grief gives way to courage, resolution, and positive action, and that impenetrable light within the breast of humanity is blown into a flame once again. That's our call from God. That's what we are called to do. I came across this poem at one of the churches that I visited this summer. It speaks to us today. It says, he came singing love. He lived singing love. He died singing love. And when he rose in silence. If the song is to continue, we must do the singing. And sing, you have from the halls of city government to the federal building square, from the top of every mountain to the valley floor with care. You have gone and given witness to what you've seen and heard. You have spoken truth to power and become the living word. You have stood for peace and justice and for equal rights for all. You are the church of Jesus because you've heard God's call. So go forth here rejoicing in the one who leads you on and sings your songs of Zion by all the rivers near and beyond. It's our call. It's our way to break the chains that God has given to us.
There is power in the name of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus to break every chain. Break every chain, break every chain. To break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. There is power in the name of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus to break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. To break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. There's an army rising up. There's an army rising up. There's an army rising up. Break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. To break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. There's an army rising up. There's an army rising up. There's an army rising up. To break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. To break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. chains of injustice, they are breaking. I hear the chains falling. Let them fall. I hear the chains falling. I hear the chains falling. Falling. I hear the chains falling. Let them fall. 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 Let the chains fall.
Rise up. Rise up as we hear these chains fall. Let's do it, go. I hear the chains falling. I hear the chains falling.
Let them fall. Let the chains fall.
I hear the chains
Let the chains fall. Nothing's holding us back now, y'all. Let
I
them
hear
fall. Let the chains let the chains fall.
I hear the chains
Let the chains fall. Let the old enemy back no more.
I hear the chains falling. 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 I hear the chains falling.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen to that.
Do you hear those chains falling? And you know what we're called to do is to sing a song like this. We can't sing like him, but we can certainly sing our own song. We got to break the chains. We got to speak the voice. We got to speak to the injustice, because that's what we're called to do. It's more than coming here on a Sunday morning and having our butts sitting down on a pew. It's about living this life, speaking the truth, loving God in all we do, and loving everyone in this world. No exceptions. Because this is our church. Others will feel welcomed. It will do a great work. It will make generous gifts to many causes. It will be a sanctuary for social justice and for peace. It will be a church that embraces all, that builds community, that grows faith and transforms lives. Therefore, with the grace of God, we shall be a safe and inclusive church living God's radical message. Speak the truth. You're welcome to join us for our meal together as we gather together.